Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show, Red Pill Edition. My name is Leon Jones. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about big corporations funding Black Lives Matter. So the title of this afternoon's video is Big Corporations Are Funding the Black Lives Matter Movement. Now, last week, I gave you a breakdown on Susan Rosenberg, who is a terrorist. She is on the board of a corporation called Thousand Currents that is using their 501c3 to make Black Lives Matter tax exempt, because right now, by itself, Black Lives Matter is not tax exempt. Now, when it comes to this Black Lives Matter movement, public opinion has basically changed for most of us who have sense. But if you look at what's going on right now with this movement, it's more and more political, and it's more and more about money. And if you look at whose side that Black Lives Matter is on, one must understand the party known as the Democrats. Now, the Democrat Party is the party of the KKK. They're the party who believes in abortion. They're the party who believes in feminism. They're the party who believes that blacks and other minorities need to listen to them. This Democratic Party thinks they know what's best for blacks and other minorities. This is why they're trying so hard to keep us all on the plantation. The Democratic Party is the one who is racist. And here's why they're racist. Because their tactic is to call everyone else racist when the opposition doesn't agree with their point of view. But in the meantime, the Democratic Party is using racism to control blacks and other minorities. If you don't believe me, look at the CEO for Goya Products. Because he said something good about the president, the left or the Democratic Party or the party of the KKK want to boycott this gentleman. If you are a black person and you think for yourself, you're even going to have blacks who are on a plantation call you a coon, call you an Uncle Ruckus, call you a boot-looking Uncle Tom, when in essence, the party that is directing all of the ad hominem attacks, they're the people who are your real racists. They're your real coons. Now, as I told you in this video, I'm going to talk about corporations funding Black Lives Matter. So again, today's topic, I'm going to talk about some big corporations who are on board with this Black Lives Matter movement. Now, of course, one must understand the killing of George Floyd that happened on Memorial Day, which is roughly 2 months ago, while in custody of police, has set off a wave of protest and dialogue on racial justice, and that's been going on for many weeks. Now, one doesn't understand when it comes to protests, these protests are well organized. These protests are well financed. But besides billionaire financier George Soros, you have to ask yourself who's funding this matter. And if you look at the DAs, like the one in St. Louis, who's going after this couple for defending their own property, is also being funded by George Soros. See, what nobody is talking about when it comes to these DAs is that these DAs are paid by the taxpayers. They work for the government. Now, if you are working for the government, because I work for the government myself, and I'm not supposed to collect monies from any outside sources unless I provide a financial disclosure. Also, I must see if the donations given to me by outside sources are part of a conflict of interest. Well, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, many corporations, big and small, have joined the conversation, issuing statements vowing to stand with the Black Lives Matter movement. Some big tech companies like Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft and others have followed up on their supportive words with major donation pledges as well. Other companies have yet to put their money where their mouth is. Now, what I'm going to give you in this commentary is a list of some providers who are amongst companies supporting this movement. And some of these companies range from big box retailers to clothing stores to game publishers, fast food chains, and more that are giving substantial donations in the fight against racial injustice and systematic oppression. They're giving organizations that include the American Civil Liberties Union. Again, that's the American Civil Liberties Union. That's the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And let me tell you something about the NAACP. The NAACP is not a black organization. In fact, the only two black participants that helped establish the NAACP are Ida B. Wells and W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, there's another area that companies are giving donations to as well. That's the Equal Justice Initiative, and others they say are helping to create change. But what's happening with these protests, they're not creating change. They're creating divide and conquer. And that's a strategic operation that the Democrats are using so they can continue to deploy their socialist policies. Now, in addition to joining local protests and signing petitions and donating money and time, the ability to vote with your wallet to patronize companies that are making substantial donations is another way to support the cause of equal justice. Is that true? No, that's not true. You are supporting the Democratic Party when you are supporting these companies who say they're supporting Black Lives Matter. Now, what these companies fail to realize, they don't address any accusations by various companies that have cropped up in media reports and social media in recent days as well. Now, I'm getting this information from CNET, and CNET encourages you to spend time researching these companies before you buy from them to ensure that they align with your values and ethics. Again, we have technical companies. Many of the large technical companies in the U.S. have donated substantial sums to the cause. Google, which YouTube is part of Google, has committed to $12 million, while both Facebook and Amazon are donating $10 million to various groups that fight against racial justice. Apple is another one, pledging a whopping $100 million for a new racial equality and justice initiative that will challenge the systemic barriers to opportunity and dignity that exist for communities of color, and particularly for the black community. Now, this is according to Apple CEO Tim Cook. Now, you have your big box stores. Walmart, and I shop at Walmart. I might not be shopping at them for long, however. Walmart announced that it will contribute $100 million over 5 years to create a new center for racial equity. In an email to Walmart employees, CEO Doug McMillon said the center will seek to advance economic opportunity and healthier living, including issues surrounding the social detriments of health, strengthening workforce development and related educational systems, and support criminal justice reform with an emphasis on examining barriers to creating opportunity faced by those who have exited the system. Also, Target, which some of us call Target, it announced a $10 million commitment in an effort to advance social justice through supporting partners like the National Urban League and the African American Leadership Forum. The brand also committed 10,000 hours of pro bono consulting for small business in the Twin Cities that are Black owned or owned by people of color. Then you have Home Depot. Home Depot CEO Craig Menear announced a $1 million donation to the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law in a statement released on the company website. In the letter, Menear also said the company will work to change internally. And he said, I have begun working with our associate resource groups to facilitate internal town halls to share experiences and create better understanding amongst us all. He said, we are dedicated to supporting you in our communities during this time with the goal of emerging more united than ever. Let me say, instead of emerging, to become more united than ever. Now, you have gaming companies. EA is a big gaming company. EA announced a $1 million donation to improve racial equality, starting with donations to the Equal Justice Initiative and the NAACP Defense Legal or NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. The brand says it will donate to more partners in the future. Then you have Square Enix. In a Twitter earlier this month, Square Enix announced a $250,000 donation in addition to matching employee donations to the Black Lives Matter organization and other charities. Then there's Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a gaming company. They tweeted that the company will donate $100,000 to the NAACP and the Black Lives Matter organization, and they encouraged others to donate. Now you have your clothing and accessories brands. Etsy. Etsy announced a total contribution of $1 million in an Instagram post. Now the company is donating $500,000 to the Equal Justice Initiative and $500,000 to the Morales Philanthropies Black-led Movement Fund and will be matching employee donations. H&M. They're pledging $500,000 across 3 different organizations, according to an Instagram post by the brand. The groups are the NAACP, the ACLU, and Color of Change. Everlane, the San Francisco-based clothing company, announced 2 donations. This is Everlane. They announced 2 donations of $75,000 to the Equal Justice Initiative and the ACLU in a recent Instagram post. Everlane employees also compiled a shared document with educational resources on how to take action and support the Black Lives Matter movement. Tom Shoes announced to donate $100,000 over the next several months to organizations that support the movement. You have Spanx. That's a woman's lingerie brand. They announced a $200,000 commitment on Instagram. In the post, Spanx said, we are donating $100,000 across national organizations focused on combating racial injustice, Black Lives Matter, NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, the Minnesota Freedom Fund. In addition, we are committed to donating an additional $100,000 to organizations in our own home of Atlanta, Georgia. That's Atlanta, Georgia. Then Levi's. Levi's is great for jeans. Levi's is donating $200,000 to the movement, $100,000 to the ACLU, $100,000 in grants to Live Free USA, which is an organization working to end mass incarceration. Gap brands. Gap brands include Athleta, Old Navy, and Gap. Gap brands pledged a total of $250,000 in donation to the NAACP. Again, Gap brands pledged a total of $250,000 in donations to the NAACP and Embrace Race on behalf of that brand that includes Athleta, Old Navy, and Gap. You see where I'm going with all this? There's a lot of money inside of this Black Lives Matter movement, and nobody wants to spell it out. Now you have Warby Parker. Warby Parker is an eyewear manufacturer, and they're committed to donating $1 million to fight systematic racism, although the brand didn't disclose which organizations they will donate the money to, but they are donating money. Also, Lululemon. Lululemon is an athletic wear brand, and they originally announced a $100,000 donation to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, but due to the abundance of donations, they have asked to channel their resources into other foundations standing for change. They have contributed a total of $250,000 to local Minneapolis organizations like Rebuild Lake Street and Friends of Hennepin County Library, as well as national organizations like the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, and Reclaim the Block. Now, some of your big shoe brands, and one we all know, Nike. Nike promises to donate $40 million over the course of 4 years to social justice organizations that support the Black Lives Matter movement. So you see, it's not just George Soros. It's a lot of these big corporations that we buy products from. Now you have food brands. McDonald's. The fast food giant McDonald's is committing $1 million to the NAACP and the National Urban League, and that's according to Business Insider. Business Insider is a good source. I do read that source. Wendy's. Wendy's pledged a $500,000 donation to support social justice, the youth, and education in the Black community, starting with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola released a statement titled, "Where We Stand on Social Justice," and committed $2.5 million in grants from Coca-Cola Foundation to the NAACP, Equal Justice Initiative, and the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. Honest Beauty, because we're getting into beauty and makeup companies. The brand, founded by Jessica Alba, pledged $100,000 in donations to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Equal Justice Initiative. And I'm putting these companies out there because you need to find out if these companies are going with your beliefs. And to me, Black Lives Matter does not support Black people. I don't hear Black Lives Matter talking about better schools, Black on Black violence, abortion in the Black community. I don't hear Black Lives Matter talking about businesses in the Black community. Again, the founders of Black Lives Matter are basically a Marxist organization, and they've already admitted that they are practicing Marxists. In fact, one of the founders takes pleasure in representing Asante Shakur, who was the African-American lady involved in a traffic stop back in 1973. She killed, and this was in New Jersey, she killed a trooper on a New Jersey turnpike. She was sentenced to jail, Then she escaped back in 1979, and right now she's on the FBI's most wanted. Now we have Antasia Beauty. They're pledging $1 million to various organizations, writing in Instagram posts. They said they began with a donation of $100,000 across following organizations: Black Lives Matter, the Innocence Project, the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, Black Visions Collective, and the Marshall Project. We have Glossier. Glossier plans to donate $500,000 to organizations that are focused on combating racial justice and will donate an additional $500,000 in grants to Black-owned beauty brands. What about health and wellness companies? Now, United Health Group. Now, United Health has health insurance. They're a big giant. They announced a $10 million commitment to support George Floyd's children and Minnesota businesses impacted by civil unrest. United Health is giving $5 million to the YMCA Equity Innovation Center of Excellence. United Health employs 20,000 people in Minnesota, and its headquarters is outside Minneapolis, and George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. Then you have Whoop. Whoop announced a $20,000 donation to the Equal Justice Initiative in an announcement by CEO Will Ahmed on Instagram that outlined other ways that the fitness tracker company will work to improve diversity and promote social justice. Then you had Peloton. Peloton announced a $500,000 donation to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in a social media post that encouraged others to donate and contribute to the Black Lives Matter cause. Again, audience, Black Lives Matter is another arm of the Democratic Party. And these corporations are in bed with the Democratic Party. Black Lives Matter does not care about African American people. In fact, I saw a video the other day where a black officer, he was from Portland, Oregon. And he said in an interview that he was talking to an African American woman. And a white lady came up and she said, "You shouldn't be talking to the police. F the police." Now, I have a problem with that. Now, I'm not prejudiced, but white people don't speak for black people. White people are not our masters, although these white liberals think they're masters. And these white liberals are trying to divide black people from the rest of the country by being compassionate, by telling black people they really care for them, when really they don't care for black people. Because if these white liberals cared for black people, they would be in the black community fighting along with black people to contain the violence, stop abortion, get rid of Planned Parenthood, help black people establish businesses, help black people establish good schools. But these white liberals, all they want black people for is their vote in every election. They promise black people the world, but never deliver. These are the white folks who are calling white supremacists, but they are white supremacists because there really is no difference between true white supremacists and white liberals when it comes to black people. Again, the only difference that I see between white supremacists and white liberals is just white liberals act like they care for black people with their compassion, but they really don't. They want black people to stay on the plantation. Along those lines, white liberals want other minorities to stay on the plantations. In fact, Black Lives Matter has a number of white organizers, in that group. And they're a terrorist group right along Antifa. Antifa stands for anti-fascism. Well, the anti-fascists are fascists. What Black Lives Matter does is recruit ignoramuses from the streets to go and do their dirt. And for you black people out there, you need to start standing up to these Black Lives Matter protesters and Antifa, because while they're getting paid $15 to $25 an hour, or $25 or $2,500 for destroying your communities, you're left with nothing. And what these groups want to do, they want to destroy you. And here's how they want to destroy you, or destroy us as black people. Look at what they're doing. They want the faces taken off of Aunt Jemima, Mrs. Butterworth. And I don't even know if Mrs. Butterworth is a black person. Cream of Wheat, Uncle Ben's. Well, who are you going to replace those faces with? White folk? Well, to me, that's racist. But see, the Democratic Party wants to pick up ignorant people to vote for them. Also, the media is spinning it. The media is telling black people that there's systematic racism out here. And I'm proving to all you black people there is no systematic racism. Systematic racism is policies written in place, like coloreds drink out of one fountain, whites drink out of another fountain. That happened during the Jim Crow eras. They're using that term to divide us. See, the Democrats can't win in the elections, so they want to conjure up different ways to cheat. This is why they want mail-in balloting. If you look at what the Democrats have done, they've put out a false impeachment against the president. You look at Brett Kavanaugh. He was set up by a woman who falsely accused him of sexually assaulting her, and she didn't remember anything. But when it comes to the Democrats, they're going to tell you that this money isn't going to the Democratic Party. It is. And these corporations are trying to save their own hides from being destroyed by these protesters, because what's really happening is these companies are all about money themselves. You see, there's a lot of money tied into this Black Lives Matter movement. But you have to find out where this money is going. Who is it being spent on? Like I said, the Black Lives Matter movement is well financed and well organized. It goes much further than black people. This Black Lives Matter is being used to get the president out of office. If you look at all of the Democratic cities run by Democrats, some of who are black, they're not running these cities very well. But how are you going to be black and claim systematic racism when you've made it? If you were an athlete making over $1 million a year or more, how are you going to claim systematic racism? Now, the problem with black people is you don't own anything. Yes, you have the money, but somebody else is telling you what to do. And when it comes to Black Lives Matter, my word on this is they're being funded by big companies. They're all in it together. And as I said in the past, they're using the media to spin everything to make it look like there is real systematic racism and these protests are legitimate. You can tear down all the statues. You can spin every event. But if you are an American who wants freedom and you're paying attention to what's going on, you're not going to be fooled by this. And also, don't be fooled by the polls, because they're opinion polls. Because at the end of the day, this is what's really happening. Black Lives Matter and Antifa and these big corporations want to destroy this country. And they're also using the situation with wearing masks to control us as well. But if you are a thinking American, these tactics are not going to work. Why? Because we, who are true Americans, are fighting for freedom, and the government and these corporations and the media and education and religion will not win. And I have to ask, where are all the preachers? They're nowhere to be found, because they're in this as well. Because when it comes to Americans, I want to ask this question. Do you want freedom, or do you want tyranny? The choice is yours. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. If you want some science, technology, engineering, and math, check out the Mind of STEM channel, because on that channel, I talk about different science, technology, engineering, and math subjects. Also, you can check me out on Blog Talk Radio every weekend. 215-383-5785 is the number to call in. And if you can't find me on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, simply catch me on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm going to leave you with a little bit of this. Be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones, and I want everybody to protect themselves, because what's going on in this country is a war of spiritualness. You have the demons versus the believers in God. Don't let the demons bully you. Again, thank you for listening to this commentary right here on YouTube. Please have a wonderful and blessed day. Once again, my name is Leon Jones. God bless you. I'm out.